The first time I realized I'd moved into the wrong kind of nice neighborhood, it wasn't the manicured lawns or the identical mailboxes. It was the sound of handcuffs snapping shut in a packed HOA meeting room. 200 people went dead quiet, and the woman who'd been bullying me for weeks, Brenda Caldwell, finally stopped smiling. "I'm Ethan Parker, and I didn't buy some giant mansion in a gated paradise. I inherited my grandfather's small property on the edge of a community called Cedar Ridge Estates, Texas, heat shimmering off the asphalt, everything bright and polished like a real estate brochure. It was supposed to be simple. Move in, fix the old place up, breathe for the first time in years. Instead, day 3, I walk out to my mailbox, and there's a black Range Rover sitting sideways across the narrow lane like it's auditioning for a most entitled parking job contest. A woman steps out wearing white sneakers so clean they looked factory-sealed, big sunglasses clipboard tucked to her chest like a shield. Mid-50s, perfect blowout pearl earrings, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hi," she says, drawing out the word like she's tasting something sour. "I'm Brenda Caldwell, president of the Homeowners Association." I blink. I don't live in the HOA. She tilts her head like I'm slow. "You're adjacent. That makes you relevant." Then she slaps a bright orange violation sticker onto my truck window. Unapproved vehicle appearance. Cedar Ridge has standards. My truck wasn't even ugly. It was just old, paid off, not trying to impress anybody. I peel the sticker off and she puts her hand on mine, light, deliberate, like she's training a dog. "If you remove that," she says, "I can escalate fines and liens." The way she said "lien" like it was a fun hobby made my stomach tighten. I tried to keep it civil. "Ma'am, I'm not in your association. You can't find me." Brenda's smile widens. "We'll see." And then she glanced at the envelope in my hand, an old manila packet my grandfather's attorney had mailed to me, and her face flickered. Just for a second, like she recognized something she didn't want to. That tiny reaction stuck with me, because people like Brenda don't flinch unless they know they're standing on thin ice. Over the next week, Cedar Ridge turned into a little machine designed to grind me down. Notices taped to my door, emails from compliance, a tow warning on my windshield because my tires were too close to the street, on my own gravel. Then the personal stuff started. Neighbors I'd never met staring like I'd tracked mud onto their carpet. Somebody accidentally left a bag of dog poop on my porch, twice. Brenda kept showing up like a recurring villain in a cheap TV show. Except this one felt expensive, and I was the only person not in on the script. One afternoon she cornered me by my fence, her clipboard held tight like it gave her authority. "You can make this easy," she said, "or you can be difficult. And I promise you Cedar Ridge doesn't tolerate difficult." I laughed once dry. "You're threatening me over lawn aesthetics." Her voice dropped. "Over control." That night I went into my basement and stared at an old steel lockbox my grandfather used to keep tools in. It had a small brass key taped beneath a beam, like he'd hidden it for someone who knew to look. I'd never been the guy who believes in signs. I'm more of a receipts and paperwork person. But something about Brenda's little flinch made me want answers. So I unlocked the box. Inside were rolled surveys, yellowed photocopies, a plat map, and a stack of documents that made my throat go tight in a way I couldn't explain at first. A lease. Not mine, Cedar Ridge's. And it wasn't a normal lease. It was a land lease agreement from the mid-90s tied to a development company name I recognized from local news archives, a company that had gone bankrupt. I sat on the basement steps, just staring at it, feeling that slow, cold realization crawl up my spine. Cedar Ridge Estates wasn't sitting on their land the way everyone assumed. It was sitting on land my family still owned. And the kicker, the part that made my hands start to shake, was the access road. The only road in and out of that whole neighborhood ran through a strip of property deeded to my grandfather decades ago. In plain English, their fancy community had one throat, and my family owned the windpipe. The next morning, Brenda showed up again, except this time she wasn't alone. A lawyer in a crisp suit stood beside her holding a folder like it was Holy Scripture. Brenda's smile was syrupy. "Ethan," she said, like we were friends, "we'd like to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement." She slid the folder toward me on my porch table. $800,000. My eyebrows went up despite myself. "Sign," she said, tapping the signature line. "You'll be comfortable. We'll be protected. Everybody wins." I read the first page, then the second, and my stomach dropped again. The contract didn't just buy the road. It dumped old liabilities onto me: maintenance, legal exposure, indemnifications. Basically every problem Cedar Ridge had been hiding under polite landscaping. I set the folder down slowly. My lawyer will review this. Brenda's smile tightened. You don't need a lawyer. That was the moment my patience snapped into focus. People who say you don't need a lawyer are the reason you need a lawyer. When I didn't sign, Cedar Ridge stopped pretending. My mailbox started coming loose like someone had kicked it. A stranger mistook my driveway and spun gravel all over my front yard. Then I got a call from the sheriff's office about a complaint anonymous claiming I'd threatened a resident with a weapon. I don't own a weapon. I stood in my kitchen with my phone pressed to my ear, staring at the wall, and for the first time since moving in, I felt something close to panic. Not because I thought I'd get arrested, because I could see the shape of what they were doing. Brenda wasn't trying to win an argument. She was trying to make my life so inconvenient, so stressful, so socially toxic, that I'd take the money, sign the paper, and disappear. And I'll be honest, there was one night I sat in the dark, laptop open, reading HOA horror stories, and I thought, maybe I should just cash out. Not because I was wrong, because fighting a whole system, neighbors, board members, rules, lawyers, felt like trying to hold back a river with my hands. Then I pictured my grandfather out here fixing fence posts in the sun, paying taxes year after year, building something real, while a bunch of strangers built a kingdom next door and acted like they owned the world. I didn't need motivational quotes. I needed a plan. So I drove to the county records office the next morning and asked for every public document tied to Cedar Ridge's original development. That's where I met Lisa Martinez, county clerk, mid-30s, hair in a messy bun, eyes sharp, like she'd seen every kind of scam walk through that door. She listened, didn't laugh, didn't roll her eyes, just turned her monitor toward me and said, "You're not crazy. This is messy." Together, we traced it. Bankrupt developer, land lease with a ticking end date, deeds that never fully transferred, and a board Brenda operating like none of it mattered. Because as long as nobody challenged it, it didn't. I called an attorney who specialized in property and access rights, and we did the boring, powerful stuff: certified letters, formal notices, recorded statements. And then I made one move that wasn't about punishment. It was about control. I didn't want to lock hundreds of families inside their neighborhood. That wasn't my fight. But I could stop Brenda from using the road like her personal leverage tool. So we drafted an emergency access agreement with the nearby hospital, clear rules designated use proper compensation, and a third-party security company to manage barriers in case of a safety incident. Everything legal, everything documented. And early the next morning, when Cedar Ridge's commuter parade tried to flow out like usual, they hit cone signage and a security guard holding a clipboard that made Brenda's look like a toy. Cars stacked up. Horns blared. People stepped out in suits, confused, angry. Then Brenda appeared. Of course she did, storming down the road in flip-flops and a robe like a suburban dictator on a warpath. "I am the president of this HOA," she screamed at the guard. He didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, this is private property access under a temporary control agreement. Emergency lanes only. Your board has been notified." Brenda turned and saw me standing back by my fence, arms crossed, saying nothing. Her eyes narrowed into two sharp little points. "You can't do this," I finally spoke. "I can. And you should have checked the paperwork before you tried to bury me." That's when Cedar Ridge called an emergency community meeting. They packed the clubhouse like it was election night. Residents, board members, Brenda's lawyer, two local reporters who smelled blood in the water. Brenda took the microphone and did what she does best: performed. She talked about property values, community standards, one bad actor. She called me reckless, vindictive, a threat. I waited until she ran out of breath. Then I walked up with a flash drive and a calm I didn't feel in my bones. "I'm not here to trap anyone," I said. "I'm here to tell the truth because the truth is what Brenda's been avoiding." The screen lit up with documents: the land lease, the bankruptcy filing, the plat maps showing the road strip under my family name. A murmur rolled through the room like wind through dry grass. Brenda's face went pale, then snapped back into anger. "Those papers are irrelevant." I clicked again, and the speakers filled the room with her voice, recorded on my porch the day she told me to sign without a lawyer. "You can make this easy," her voice said, "or you can be difficult. Cedar Ridge doesn't tolerate difficult." Then another clip, lower, sharper. "$500,000 and you leave, or I'll make sure you regret ever moving here." People turned to look at her like they were seeing her for the first time. Somebody gasped. A man in the front row stood up and said, "Are you kidding me?" Brenda grabbed the mic like she could strangle the moment. "I did what I had to do to protect this community." And that's when the woman sitting quietly in the back row finally stood. No drama, no speech. She walked forward, held up a badge, and said, "Brenda Caldwell, you are under arrest for fraud and conspiracy." The room froze. Brenda's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like her brain couldn't compute a reality where consequences existed. And when the cuffs clicked shut around her wrists, the only sound was that clean metallic snap. No cheering, no victory laps, just the end of a bully's story, right where it belonged. Lesson paper beats power when you stop being afraid to use it.